Hi everyone, this is Dan Mumm with the Mumm Group here with your weekly market update for the Vegas real estate market. In the last 7 days, we saw 1,119 new homes come on the market and 762 which sold. So our total inventory is still relatively unchanged. It's dropped a bit to about 9,100 homes for sale. We're seeing the same amount of inventory really for the last few months. We also saw the pricing come out for the month of March, and the median price point still hasn't really changed. We're bouncing up and down slightly month by month depending on what happens with the rates, but really prices are holding pretty flat, which is interesting. One thing that I wanted to talk about this week, which I've had a lot of discussion with my clients about, is this concept called selling past the inspection and selling past the offer process. One thing that we're noticing is that in a flat or declining market, the deal doesn't come to an end when we get an accepted offer from a client. Oftentimes what happens is that when we are negotiating a price for an offer, for example, we go back and forth a bunch of times, we finally get an agreement, and the seller thinks that the process is over at that point. Unfortunately, what happens is that the buyers continue to look at other properties, especially in a flat or declining market where there's a lot of homes coming on the market, rapid amount every single week. As time goes by after the offer is accepted, they're still seeing more homes come on the market, oftentimes at lower prices. So what that means is, as a seller, to be in front of this, you can't just get enough value to the buyer for them to agree to your offer. You also need to make sure they're getting enough value for them to see it through and stick it through the entire process and get to the closing table. So there actually needs to be even more value delivered up front to get them through the process. Keep in mind there's other things that are happening during the escrow, such as inspections, appraisals, which raise even more red flags and cause the buyers to typically have a little bit of buyer's remorse. Pretty much any buyer has buyer's remorse to some degree when they're going through an inspection process. And as a seller, it's really important to understand that psychology so you can be in front of it rather than shocked when it happens. So what does this mean for you if you're selling a home? It just means that when you're negotiating your original offer, it doesn't always make sense to squeeze all of the juice out of the grape in the beginning. Sometimes it does make sense to leave a little bit there so that the buyer feels good and there's a little bit of stickiness to the deal. Because keep in mind, psychologically, this deal does not end when the offer is accepted. When we're in this type of market, sometimes it's not even the inventory that's coming on the market. Sometimes it's just bad news, rates increasing, volatility in the economy. All these things are bombarding the consciousness of your buyer. And the more time that goes by after they accept, after you go under contract, they start questioning things, and you really want to be ahead of that rather than behind it. If you have any questions on this, please let me know, and I'll speak with you next week.